One of the roles of civil society is to be a watchdog. And let me say on this, there were lots of arguments about what is civil society and how do you define it. So I leave that, there's probably some great academics in the audience, and go away and define that and write a PhD thesis and come and give us a lecture in the future. But thinking about the watchdog role, a thought came to my mind, which I've used in a political context some years ago, but I'll recycle here. Civil society is not a tail on the public authority dog. Civil society is a perfectly formed, smaller dog. And like any perfectly formed dog, will need occasionally to bite and to bark on its own account. And that for me is some kind of a modestly adequate definition of what is the nature of civil society. Small dog for sure, but a perfectly formed one. As someone said today, a terrier but not a Rottweiler, so that you get the scale somewhere in place. But the point of it being, in other words, it's not there just to do the bidding of government. It's not there like the tail to be wagged by the public authority dog. If it is, then that system isn't working the right way up. And in that sense, I think the image holds. One of the issues that has come up on process is the nature of the participation. We talk about phrases like participatory democracy. But you need structures to make that work. Calling a meeting and doing something in an afternoon is an interesting event. But it's not a process. A process is something deeper. It has structures, it has continuity, it has agenda setting, it measures key performance indicators, it reevaluates and monitors. And so if you're getting involved in something which is structured, it's more than simply coming along and getting a little pat on the back and told, you're doing a great job and we'll have some funds again in the budget next year, now thank you very much and go home. This is not participatory democracy. This is just public relations. And so we've got to understand if we're developing best practice, we need to look at the methodology, the process of best practice, and here I think we have more work to do, not just public authorities. And one of the suggestions I would like to make as an action item from here, for this region, the Regional Cooperation Council Western Balkans and Taxo could help us, but also here at Tusev in Turkey, there was lots of talk about the new legislation, the new frameworks for association, some of the tax rules and so on. It could be very useful if we simply wrote down what is the state of play, state by state, and where are there better examples and worse examples, so we can pass around among each other as a community some better examples of better practice, and perhaps that way become advocates for a deepening of change. And in that, the question of the consultative process should be part. How do we develop and deepen that? A final observation on this relates to Article 11 of the Treaty of Lisbon. And it was correctly remarked here, and indeed has been discussed more than once in our board in European Movement International, that the citizens' initiative part of that is important. It's the bit that was the kind of the sexy news item, and it gets all the publicity. But it may not, among the items in Article 11, be the long-term most important bit. Because Article 11 also provides a legal base that demands more transparency and that demands consultation. We have to work on what does that mean, in dialogue with others and with authority, to give a real meaning in an EU context, both for member states and candidate states alike, as to how we can vivify, how we can give life and meaning and substance to these terms. So to conclude then, the actions for European movement, several things came that I think are quite practical from today. One is a suggestion that one of our future meetings of this sort should spend more time looking at effective communications, at media strategy and at best practice. And I think we as European Movement will undertake to begin to explore with you how we might focus on that in the future. Second, and I've already covered it so I won't develop it again, but with TAXO, Regional Cooperation Council, TUSEV and others, to try to work out what is going on state by state on the key issues of right of association, funding, taxation and so on, and see if we can learn from each other and do that. And finally, and this is a point both of politics and conviction for me and for the European Movement International. We're not here in Istanbul and in Turkey by accident. We are here by conviction. We are not just here by invitation, though we were invited, and we thank our colleagues of European Movement, Turkey and other partners for the invitation. But we're here by choice, not just invitation. We are and have been committed to this region's accession to EU. That includes Turkey, and it doesn't exclude Turkey. But our role is not the role of an institution of state or an institution of the European Union, and our theatre is not the theatre of summit meetings and prime ministers and presidents. Our great theatre, if we have one, is people to people. The hands across borders, the building of friendships, personal, professional, and of networks. And our engagement leading here to do with a people-to-people priority that we take as conviction and in our hearts from Istanbul is to organise in the coming period with colleagues from Turkey an attempt to create an offensive in Brussels in terms of strategy and media and sensitising authority to the visa question. It is visible, it is real, it is symbolic in some way, and if we can begin to unlock something that real and meaningful to people, we can really offer something tangible and useful. And that is our promise from today. I just listened there at the end, and it's fascinating. You know, enlargement fatigue in the EU is mentioned, transition fatigue in accession states, and I dare say in Turkey you could add process fatigue, because we've been locked into this endless process that seems, for all the reasons we know only too well, to go more in circles than to go forward. But I think our being here and the kind of role we can play may be modest but real. So again, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank our partners TUSEV for their wonderful cooperation. I want to thank our own staff in European Movement International for all that they've done. And in particular, if I may single out Mathilde Pinamonti, I'd ask you to stand please, Mathilde, who has been very dedicated to this task. And we thank her for all the coordination. So that's it. I look forward to our meeting again, to building in the ways we talked about media, about learning best practice, and about the visa question in Turkey. For those of you who are close to home, have a good weekend, and for those of you like myself who are further from home, bon voyage. Thank you.